Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is doing all right and hope everyone is heading towards getting their vaccine. Remember, this is the year 2021, and we're trying to, I guess, make sense of our modernization. Some it's very hard, some it's a lot less hard. I wish you all well with that. Get the vaccine if you can and be healthy and help others to be healthy too. I want to thank people who are sending in questions. I really appreciate that. It gives me an opportunity to try and talk about material that other people think they might need a little bit of discussion on. And I think it's very positive to do that. So if there are those out there who haven't sent in questions or want to send in more questions, please do. There's always room for more. Thank you. This is a question from Bronwyn Rees. As someone who is not very aware of energy, I'm constantly wondering, searching, resisting, willful about locating it and trying to figure out what I'm looking for. In meditation today, it came as an awareness of physical discomfort. I cannot infrequently, just make sure I'm saying this right, I not infrequently get clammy or sweaty and uncomfortable sitting in meditation. But this time I didn't force the redirecting or try to look at it from behind my back or talk to myself down. Interesting, broad one. Instead, I just sat in it and breathed softly at it. Not sure what that means. And wondered if it was an experience of energy and what it was doing. Something shifted, I think. Is this what you speak of when you speak of the flow and just looking for it? I think an awful lot of people overthink meditation. And it's really somehow not really necessarily a fault. It's just you're trying to get something to be perfect. And there's really basically no such thing. I think in overthinking meditation, if you can go back to the basics, and there's all kinds of different kinds of basics. And one of the basics that I've been trying to put forward is you try to be aware inside you and all around you, and that's all you do, nothing else. Years ago, there was a meditation I thought might be really helpful, and it's kind of similar to an ancient Buddhist orientation, not quite exactly, but for example, all of you have seen a church bell. Well, in your imagination, make a big one so that it's wrapped around your head about this big, comes down, flares out, and it's front, back, sides. Okay. That's all you're thinking. It's over now. Period. No more thinking. Good luck with that one. But nonetheless, no more thinking. Now, just be aware inside you, first of all. Be aware inside your head, as if there's nothing there. Inside your neck, nothing there. Inside your body, your chest, your arms, your belly, the lower aspects of you, the legs, the knees, all the way down to the tips of your toes. Then begin again and be aware of your feet, your legs, inside your body, as if there's nothing there. It's all air. It's just a form like a balloon filled with air, when this form is part of the balloon. So you're aware inside of that. If your mind shifts, just continue on. Ignore it, or say, no, get out of here. I'm busy right now. I'm trying to meditate. And then when you're comfortable in there, the best you can, just being quiet, stay as quiet as you can. If there's stuff in your head, either ignore it or tell it to get out of there. Just say, I'm not interested right now. I'm meditating. You don't care whether you're doing it right. You don't care whether you're doing it wrong. You don't care whether it should be this way or that way or some other way. You just don't care. But we're trained to care. So we care a lot. It has to be perfect before we can truly consider ourselves meditating. No, it doesn't. Not at all. Too much pressure. And the emotional disposition is set up to counter pressure. It's set up that way so that we can function as human beings in our daily life. So there's no negation in that at all. It's just how we're set up to do things. We constructed this, and it's part of our construction. But being quiet inside, best you can. And then, if you want to go farther after you've accomplished doing a little bit of that, try to be aware inside the bell. So you're extending out another 6 or 8 inches behind you, front of you, to the sides, above your head, all the way down. And there's a flare at the bottom. So there's a little bit more. You can do that. And then come back up, all the way up. And just relax and let go. That is probably the simplest method of learning how to meditate. Now, in some people's versions of that, they start dialoguing. What about the heart? And what about the brow? And what about how come you do this and how come you do that? And what if I'm talking and what if this is happening and it's really not really perfect? Let go of yourself. Do the best you can to calm yourself down. That stuff is added material that is not a part of your meditation. That's part of attempting to follow a line of reference that indicates how you have learned in your life how to engage with things that are basically newer or different. And the vulnerability that we all have about not doing things perfectly right. There's other methods of meditating. The reason why I'm trying to get you to do something like this is ultimately, after you get comfortable inside you, then you're comforting yourself a bit, it's not as important that you have these reactions. It slowly begins to operate. As soon as you start doing that, of course, you will want to protect. And the protection that you'll want to be helpful with is protecting your reactions. If it happens like that, let it happen like that. Your reaction, blah, 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 blah. Well, let it be there. It'll get boring. Unless you really rev it up just to prove to yourself that you can still do that. But you've practiced from the time of your birth, basically to construct a form which you don't really need practice in anymore. You're very effective with it. And it's a viable orientation that fits a style that you have decided is of some consequence for you. This is meditation. It's different, You don't have to use it. Many people go on using it for years and years and years, and then they turn against it. Well, you've been practicing it and you turn against it, which means you don't want it anymore. As soon as you say that and you issue a proclamation, then you will start automatically to defend its existence. And you won't even know you're doing that. So, too much thinking. Let it go. Just let it go. Best you can. And practice doing that. If something comes up, not interested. Something else comes up, I'm not interested. Leave me alone. I'm meditating. There are periods of time that you'll actually go through, and it will be strange. It's suddenly you're not getting as many of them. So you're very interestingly making a section of your life so that meditation, by letting go, will be okay and acceptable to you. You made a boundary there. Your mind is capable of being quite large, and your emotions are capable of being respectful of that largesse. It happens to exist potentially in everybody. So, another way of considering this is, there's all different kinds of ways of attempting to meditate. The breathing style that I've tried to teach just a little bit of at the beginning so that you could get your mind off of trying to be quiet. And that was fine, but that's using the personality so you can keep it busy, and then you can make sure that you can correct something when you're not doing it right. I'm trying to get you. The correction is not of value. The practice is of value. And the recognition that in whatever we do, no matter what it is, don't care, in life, we will sometimes do something that will be helpful, and then we'll do the same exact same thing, and it will not be helpful under different circumstances. It's the nature of how we are engaged with life. No negation is involved with this. So I hope that helps a little bit. Maybe I left something out here. Excuse me. I'll just take another look. And it is, she talks about it being a basic question, but all questions are valuable. They sometimes are very personalized, but they're still valuable. So those of you who have a little bit of trouble in what you have to do under some circumstances, I remember there are a lot of experiential exercises that you can do that we have, that you've all tried to do. Here's the thing. Many of them can be used when you have discomfort in a certain chakra because more energy is coming into it. All right, hang on. The first reflex to that is, yeah, I had that on, coming into me. No. What you're doing is focusing on that discomfort, and it becomes stronger. If that's true, if it's possibly true, let's say, then you can take that focus off of what you're doing and use it to engage with bringing up the energy up, if it was the solar plexus, out about a foot, back behind you, as if it's a mental thought, not an emotional intensity that you can use for the purpose of imagining something or creating something. Not like that. It's a mental thought. You go to your mind, let your mind sink to the area literally in front of your waistline. Move it back as if you're looking at it moving back in your mind, nice and softly, way up to the upper part of that chest, for example. If you had a little bit of difficulty with too much energy in the solar plexus, bring it out, bring it back slowly. It's like you're hardly moving. Behind your back, out at about a foot or so, and then back slowly, slowly. Just a thought, no pushing, no getting it right, just a thought, straight out about 8 to 12 inches. Leave it there. Stay there for a few seconds. You'll notice there's a shift in how the energy is. It'll soften down. And then you go on with being aware inside as if there's nothing there. Why you did that was only because it was the solar plexus, which includes the biases that are natural and normal for you in your emotional, mental disposition and physical disposition. And it was a little intense, and now you tried to soften it down. And you're not doing it with the emotional intensity. You're doing it with a simple, empty of intensity thought. Slowly moving back, upward, upward again. And the energy follows that empty thought. You're not trying to draw pictures necessarily. You're just trying to be with a movement as quiet, as softly as possible. Engage. And you can get to them after practicing these kinds of things. Within a second, you can just see it. You didn't create anything. It's just there. And it's over. That flow will move through more gently, because your attempt is to have a kind of image with no thought. It's just there. Just like when you're watching a river or a creek in the spring, it's flowing. There's no doubt. And maybe some of you have tried to look for a spot in the water to your right, for example, if it's flowing down to your left. You look for a spot and you watch that spot moving, and it's moving, but you did not do that to move it, to follow it. There was no need to have any thought, because that empty emotional area was capable of following what was there in front of you, as opposed to you tightening up, engaging, so that you could be sure that it was the right way to do it. Didn't have to do that. And you don't have to do that with energy. Just in attending. Less overthinking. Gentle, respectful, kind. Letting go. And there it is. Try that. And also, there are a couple of questions based on that same kind of idea. Don't try and do these exercises all at once. And when you're opening your hands, be soft, gentle, because you don't even have to look. You know where your hands are. And if you can be aware just where your little finger is, then within a second, there is a movement from the little finger down and to the thumbs, to the tips. You don't have to draw them. You're just aware of them. That's a soft thought. Then moving back again and upward. Soft thought down the fingers. Don't have to push. If you do the pushing, they'll tend to open your emotional disposition more, because that's what you're telling it to do. And be aware of that center of that hand. And you can do it again 2 or 3 times. If you do it with your emotion, you'll begin to notice, honestly, your solar plexus becoming stronger. If you do it with your mind, that gentle stuff, you'll notice your brow starting to turn on. You see, the trick in all of this, and it had always been a trick, and a trick because it protected the sages from having a normal individual focusing on things, opening up their emotional disposition more, and thinking that they've become highly sophisticated in terms of spiritual growth. And they would talk like that because the personality needs to broadcast. There's no negation on that. It's just what it does. So learning how to do it in a mind flow affects the emotions in a gentler way. Learning how to engage with your body in a mind flow affects your body in a gentler way. There is no doubt that all of us have emotion, and emotion can be stimulated. That's real. But you're trying to open the mind at a level that is just a little past the emotional mind or the intellectual intensity needed to be validated, just past that. So you can watch that opening and notice it, and then pull back from the great need to be validated by doing things right. You'll notice more, become more aware of certain sensitivities becoming stronger as time goes on, just by subtle practice. The idea of having to get there first, the idea of being more important because you can do this versus that, is highly charged intellectually, emotionally. And it ends up, you might be able to do all kinds of little things, but if you're really interested in internal growing, it's not quite exactly the same as personality growing. And it's difficult to understand it. And there's a mixture in all of us as we grow. And we just have to be cognizant of the fact that there is an attempt to help us to grow past some of that, but we are ingrained in relationship to what we think validates us and the pressure that we put on ourselves to be exactly this way versus some other way. So I hope that helps a bit, but overthinking is part of that. And the overthinking I'm talking about is the emotional thinking about being validated because You are able to do this versus that. And that often engages with telling other people how important that is. And it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma in almost every relationship with growing. And you hear it if you're involved with people who are involved with spiritual growth, or some kind, you'll hear them talking that way. You do not do that as well. You should do it this way versus that way. If you do these exercises and many more other than there, and you do them with mind, and I'm talking about mind in relationship to being very soft, just soft, and the noticing of that softness and the softening down even more, the best you can, growth will be stronger. If you do it the other way, with great intensity physically, growth will happen, but it will be akin to and related to your personality's need to be important. And there isn't a single person on the planet, so-called spiritual or not, that doesn't have that in them. So you remember that the best you can. It is in everyone and how they do things, because in truth, we are trained to have that in us so that we can feel valued personally. It's the nature of being a human being at these levels. So there's no negation in it, but there is a movement towards understanding it from a softer point of view. And there are movements out there that help you to understand it from a much more intense point of view. Be gentle with yourself, and also be gentle in terms of your practice. It will be very helpful. And the next question, these dovetail. It's very interesting. Would you discuss why it seems, this is from Chris McLaughlin, why it seems that as we begin to perceive the energy a bit broader in and around us, that the perception of the observer broadens. You are the observer. You are the one you are watching. And you are watching that which is around you while you are observing you. Sounds complicated, a lot less complicated. If you try and make emotional sense of this, it's not going to be helpful. Well, some minds can do that a lot better. But if you, for example, maybe I should finish the question. Why is there a perception of two, sometimes beyond, something beyond, and the external, internal observer? Or are these misperceptions? No, they're not misperceptions at all, Chris. When you're attempting to watch yourself, it's a very interesting thing. If, for example, if you take a day and say, for an hour, I am truly going to watch myself, just 1 hour, an hour. You might even try 15 minutes at first. Because what are you doing? You're attempting to be okay with watching what you do. If you go and you're having breakfast, toast, making coffee, and then you'll have things flit through your mind. Be aware of those. You'll have a reaction to some of that stuff. Be aware of that. And then you'll say, what am I doing? It's like I'm watching myself do something, but I'm still doing it. The observer is being slowly cultivated to watch you doing things. You're not looking for the right thing or the wrong thing. You're not looking to be perfect. You're not looking to be anything. You're just looking and noticing. That's all. Nothing else. Assessment, not necessary. Even though I just said that, you know and I know that it will come up. Oh, why did I drop that thing? You dropped it because that's what happened. You dropped it. It's not negative. It's what happens in life. Sometimes you drop things. Okay. Why did I have a reaction to that, you could say? And boy, I wish I hadn't done that. Am I ever a klutz? No, you're not. You're a human being who sometimes drops things. Watch the defining that you have of yourself. Slow it down. There is one very major thing that most folks get to know. When you speak of yourself or others, you listen. If you elevate yourself, you become more elevated. If you put yourself down, you become more feeling down. If you engage and you're watching yourself and you're not assessing yourself, it's like your birthday. Holy mackerel, do I do that? That's a surprise. Well, you may not like the surprise, or you might really like the surprise. There are a lot of things that are positive in our engagement with life. Don't pay any attention to, because our training said, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. So we're busy not doing stuff, or we're busy complaining about what we do, or we're busy doing, oh, your rendition, I've got enough of my own. Actually, sometimes you can actually smile and laugh because you can't really believe sometimes how you engage with life. And it gets to be kind of funny. How is it possible that I would think a thing like this or like that? Well, it is possible. You can usually trace it back through time if you want, because there are layers of every single second, day, hour, day, week, month within you that you've forgotten, and you are a layered individual, as all of us are. These layers are very important to us. When we see certain things occurring in others, and this really is a negotiation towards compassion of yourself and others. This is very interesting, personally, I think. When you're looking at something, you can truly say, my gosh, you're about to say something to yourself, maybe, or to others about why they shouldn't do this or that or the other thing. And in fact, you're playing through someone else. Might be a mother, might be a father, might be an uncle, might be an aunt, might be somebody that used that technique of engaging with others that you somehow have taken on and don't even know you're doing it. Usually in some modes, both Eastern and Middle Eastern, they usually said it goes back at least 7 generations and maybe back even farther, up to 10. You can believe or not believe that, but it's very fascinating that you can notice things you do without judging them. But notice, oh my goodness, I think I do that from time to time. I always had from time to time. It's a lot easier to deal with you if it's from time to time or always. Always seems to be devastatingly difficult, but from time to time. And you do that because what you're doing is redirecting your emotional disposition into an accepting one from a judging one, from a reacting one to an understanding one, from a personally devouring one to an indication that maybe you don't have to do something as often as you have noticed you do. Well, but that's something that each individual can do. And you're not meditating only to change your personality. And you're not trying to only change your personality as you grow. That's not real. You'll make some adjustments, perhaps, and you'll make some pronouncements about how you wouldn't ever change because that's the way things should be. And both of those are fine. But what you're trying to do is open within very softly and gently so you can watch you, and at the same time, as Chris asked, external from the body as well as in the body, you can start to notice energy flowing or energy that is there. Don't have to do anything with it. It's not hurting you. If you're reacting, yeah, you can do what I was saying a little while ago to Bronwyn's question, gently, softly bringing it up so that you can allow yourself to feel comforted by the fact that it can actually work. But it takes practice. But in fact, what you're trying to do is notice that you are an energy being. In that, you are taking a leap into a broadened perspective or broadened perception, which is rare on this planet. No matter what people tell you about how they can perceive this or that, to perceive those chakras, centers, sephiroth, whatever you want to call valves, whatever you want to call them, is a level of engagement that is not common. From there, you move on to something else. You don't stop there. From there, you begin to understand transmission is coming into you that is different slightly than what you're perceiving. That takes a little while. And then you begin to wonder, is that helping my solar plexus, root, gonad, center, throat, heart, brow, crown, whole series of chakras in behind the neck, and off the body as well as nearly on the body? One would call that etheric. A lot of stuff written and talked about in those systems. There are only chakras on the etheric level. Not true at all, but it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. If you don't have that experience, then you will think everything is true that you believe should be true. It's the way we work. So when you're trying to engage with these things, you're trying to be softer and you're trying to perceive, and you realize that there's a kind of aspect of your mind that can watch you as if you are that, and you are also that which is being watched. But you are also all of those layers of life from the time you were age 0. And they're there in a similar way to everyone else's engagement with life. There's no competition with this. You're more miserable than someone else is, or you're more friendly than somebody else is. All of that stuff is style oriented. You can shift styles, but it's tough because habitual styles are hard to adjust because they don't want to adjust because they're safe and comfy within the personality landscape. And to adjust some of that is difficult. That's why you're not trying to be a perfect person. You're trying to be a person that can perceive beyond what you believe is there. And the belief is part of a real sturdy defensive system. And it affects everything. Science, arts, I don't care what it is. Religions, I don't care. Just as it affects everything. In some instances, it's very helpful to step on to go to the next step. as we have done in civilization from thousands of years ago. Slow moving, but moving. So, yes, it feels like there's two. Then, as you're perceiving inside you and around you, it almost feels like as if there's nothing in there because you're not focused on the physical, emotional, and mental anymore. You're focusing on what's movement, what's there, the energy that's there. And you can walk and pay attention to it, eyes wide open, as well as eyes closed. I propose that you walk eyes wide open. It always helps a bit. We walk into things if we don't do that. But in other words, often eyes wide open or closed, we walk into ourselves. It is okay to do that. And it's significant within to smile a bit. You remember I think it was back in the late 80s and early 90s, this idea of smiling inside, even when, I shouldn't say this out loud, but many of us don't have always a smile on our face because we have learned how to create a form that allows you to survive in a context that related to your upbringing. It's how things have worked in our life. We do the same thing in our guttural approach emotionally and our verbal approach to others in life. Same thing in relationship to our thinking process as we validate our relationship with how we think we need to be respected in this world. These are styles, and they're based on the copying of others, the reflexive, energetic transmission from others that tell you what happy is. Oh, it's not very happy always, but that's the way you should be, to be the way you should be in the eyes of someone else, because they were reflexively that way, so they could survive because they learned how to do that themselves from their previous teaching companions, parental background, or anyone else who helped them. Doesn't have to be a parent. So if that is helpful, you can notice that without negating it, without judging it, just understanding that this is part of your makeup. And you don't have to judge it, just say, I sometimes use this. Not always, but I sometimes do. It's not helpful to be judgmental about it. It is helpful to notice, because if you believe some psychological background, if you begin to notice things in yourself, there is a propensity to adapt a little bit so that you can begin to adapt stronger, more, one could say. It isn't easy to do because our protected natures are extremely valuable to us, even if they're unknown. Anyway, another thing was the cycle of growth and the broadening perception. Will we eventually, hopefully, begin to lean into the energy more in our daily lives without concretizing our perceptions into beliefs? I think, if I understand this question correctly, Chris, I think we perpetuate our personalities, it's true, but also if we learn how to perceive literally the energy in and around us, we begin to find that it's okay if we're doing that instead of what we normally do in terms of protecting um, uh, unconsciously or consciously how we function. Um, it's very interesting that you can quite easily begin to notice how you change or adapt your personality to engaging with different people. Um, you do the same thing on certain days. You do the same thing when you're assessing another. You do the same thing when you're feeling low, feeling high, feeling in and out of those things that we call low or high. Emotional responses internally. Many want to stay there because they believe they have to create something brand new. It's not true. Little by little, softening down just a bit. And in this case, becoming aware of that flow while you're even engaging with another. Anyone who who engages with me, I give you the license to try to be aware of the energy inside of you while you're talking to me. Try and see where it is. It's a practice. And try to be aware of that while you're engaging and while we're talking to each other. And stay there the best you can as a practice. And that practice will be, if you do it often, will become part of a fundamental way to engage with others. You perceive you talking to others, and you become less inclined to focus on what you should look like when you're engaged with that person, how you should be with that person. And you're more inclined to be aware of that energy in and through you, and just talk to them in an engaging manner. Because it's valuable to do so. They feel more comfortable with you, you feel more comfortable with them. I hope that helped a little bit. When without concretizing our beliefs into our perceptions into beliefs, we'll do that. Everybody does that. So you move slowly towards not doing that as much. Because you're still a personality formula. And so is everybody. This is difficult for people to want to think might be true. But it's your formula. And it's one you've designed with the help of others so that there's validation that can occur. You can consider yourself valuable if you follow your formula. No one ever said you can broaden out the formula, adapt it a bit, change it, because the beliefs you come up with that relate to the formula are not always true. It isn't always true. You can't trust people. It's pretty well true you can't trust people all the time. And the reason for that is not because they're bad people, just because they're not perfect. And they have their own biases, which we might think are not the right biases to have. Legitimate. It's okay. But trying to understand that it's okay. People they have a way of thinking things should be, and those ways are not always perfect either. And either are the observers who are watching these people, one could say. And there is another one. When entering another growth cycle, does the energy touch us deeper in the beginning? Oh my gosh. It can be almost like a replay. Um, Things you may have thought you dealt with on a deeper scale, you look at them, and sometimes you'll go to react exactly the same way as you always did to them. And suddenly, something will shift just a little bit. Go with the shift. You may not emotionally react exactly the same way, might be a little bit different. Try to notice it if you can, because it's showing you real something has changed, and also you don't have to go back to the previous beginning. You can, this isn't another beginning, but it's, you're understanding it better, so it's not affecting you in the same way. I apologize if those weren't perfect words for some of these answers, but never said I could speak perfectly about these things. These are really valuable and important questions. Okay. I might have time for one more. I'm trying to look for, apologize, for something that might be a little less time consuming. Here's another one relative to meditation. When we go into meditation and we want to work on certain issues, and we are brought somewhere else and haven't maintained our awareness to a work relating to something relating to the issues. Would you consider this productive? And what I would say is this. This is along the same line. This is from Maria Jose. Along the same line as we've been talking about. When you go into meditation, there are two kinds of meditation. She's bringing up a different kind. One is you focus on a subject matter and you concentrate on it, and then you try to let go of it so that you may have an internal insight about the particular question in mind. We're not geared for this very well. We're normally geared for the idea, whatever comes up first, that's the answer. Whatever I think might be true, even if it's only biased, it's the answer. It's one way to look at it. There are many others. If, just a suggestion, try this one. This one may be helpful. If you have something you would like to have some answers for, you may or may not get them because there's something within yourself that may have a bit of an answer, or there maybe not. But put your thought in your mind and write it down on a piece of paper at the same time. Then go into meditation as soft as you possibly can. And you're not looking for anything. You're trying to be as gentle and soft inside as you can. If your mind diverts it, talk to it and say, sorry, not interested. I'm just interested in meditating right now. Oh yeah, but I'm uncomfortable. Sorry, physical body. I'm not interested in your discomfort. I'm only interested in meditating right now. Well, I'm not really meditating that well, and you're supposed to be meditating this way versus that way or that way. Emotional mind? No, I'm meditating right now. Talk to me about that later. Your inquiry is towards a quiet space where you can let go of those things that would have you engage in a manner that relates to what you think you might believe or believed previously, or it's just your personality style is afraid that it might change. This one is one of the biggest difficulties that meditators have. You find them not meditating for months, years, because internally they have an instinct that if they do meditate, something within them will change that they depend on to engage with a life that should be like whatever this life should be in accordance with them. This is not uncommon. I remember, maybe close to 15 years, maybe 18 years ago, I was in Hampton, New York State, on the coast, giving a small seminar. And I engaged with an individual. I'm sorry, that's a different story. I apologize about that. I was in New Jersey in this one that I wanted to remember. Sorry, my memory flaw. And there was a rap on the door. I was giving a small seminar as well. And the person that was leading or having me into New Jersey, Mary, was doing that at the time before she died. And I was quite interested in what happened, because the person who came to the door said, I heard you're doing a meditation seminar. In the 70s, I used to meditate, and I was in an ashram for a number of years. And in the 70s, I panicked. And I came out of meditation, got a job, married, had a couple of kids. They're both in university now. But I had the thought that I would like to begin to meditate again. Would you let me join you in this meditation seminar? I said, of course. Yeah. Mary asked me, and I said, of course, come in. Because I knew something that is very interesting. If this person was a deep meditator before, no time is lost. He sat and he listened to the seminar, and then we had a meditation. And he came up to me after the meditation and he said, Ron, this is a bit scary for me. I said, what's that? He said, I thought all these years, in this, from the 70s all the way up into the 90s, I would have had to start all over again. And it would take me a little while to get used to it. Excuse me. But I would be okay. But he said, I'm right back into the depths of where I was before, and it's shaking me. I said, here's a trick. Soften right down and tell that part that's shaking you, you'll be okay. He said, really? I said, just tell it, you'll be okay. And you're sticking with it till the end of the day. And you'll be fine. Looked at me a little quizzical. And we went on to have lunch, came back, talk, and then there was meditation again. And I could see that when he went into meditation, he was nervous. And then suddenly, he was less nervous. He let go a bit. Because he tried that little piece of talking to himself and telling him he would be okay. And he listened to himself. He began to meditate, and he meditated. And when we were all finished, he came up to me and he says, how did you know that that would happen? I said, because it happened to me many times. And if it's happened to me, chances are and it worked. It'll work for somebody else. And he began to smile. He said, well, maybe I'll continue to meditate. Take care of yourself. And I said, you too. Off he went. It's how we design our expression to ourselves. We're very vulnerable, each one of us. And if you try to be on your side, try and be aligned with, willing to be really helpful to you and you're growing, know that you will still be you plus growing, not perfect because you do something. It's often talked about that way. You're much more superior to everybody else. This is just stuff we tell ourselves to hold ourselves from really strong internal growth. And we don't know we're doing it. So if you can pull away from that kind of thing and be okay with you and live life. Life is what should be lived. And be okay. And continue. 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 Thanks for listening, everybody. And now we're going to have a meditation, roughly about 15 minutes to an hour. And I wish you all with that lots of good, solid internal growth in this meditation. Take care of yourself. Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. And please take care of yourselves. Good night.